Hello, welcome to this Working with UKTV session. I'm Mel Bezalel, I'm Director of Development at RDF, and this morning we're discussing how to work with UKTV and the secrets to securing a commission for their popular Factual channels, W, Dave, Yesterday and Gold. I'm joined by two commissioners from UKTV, Helen. So if Hilary and Helen were famous, they'd be Hilary, because I'm having problems saying their names together. So Hilary Rosen and Head of Factual and Factual Entertainment. She has commissioned and exec produced award-winning Factual shows for UKTV, including BAFTA-winning Taskmaster for Dave, W's long-running original series Inside the Ambulance, Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over, and the Architecture The Railways Built, one of the most popular series on Yesterday. Helen Nightingale is Senior Commissioning Editor and has commissioned the multi-award-winning series Emma Willis, Delivering Babies, as well as the upcoming series with Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders for Gold, Cops on the Rock for Dave, and Secrets of the Transport Museum for Yesterday. In the next hour, Hilary and Helen will be divulging their top tips for getting your ideas to them, how to establish a working relationship, and how to make successful, long-running shows for the channels they work across. Their brief is huge. They commission everything from blue light shows with paramedics and police to specialist series on architecture and railways. They work with high-profile talent from Emma Willis to Stacey Dooley to emerging talent like grime artist turned TV chef Big Zoo, whose show was nominated for an award at this year's BAFTAs in the Best Feature category. So we referenced yesterday's railway series before, so let's precariously push that metaphor as we invite you onto this fast train through UKTV's channels and upcoming shows, and I'll try not to totally milk the train carriage metaphor by mentioning windows of opportunity. Sorry, I work in development. So to avoid death by video conferencing, UKTV have provided some great clips we'll sprinkle across the hour, and we've got a couple of exclusives for DocFest too, so that's exciting. And Hilary and Helen, or Hilary as I should call them, are keen to answer questions from you. Please feel free to submit questions throughout via the Q&A function, and we'll get to as many as we can, probably at the end of the session. So Hilary, can we start with you? How can producers get their feet through the UK TV doors? And do you think they always need to partner with a production company?
Hello, morning. Thanks, Mel, for that lovely introduction. Yes, I think we discourage an independent producer. I was going to say working from their bedroom, but of course we're all working from our bedrooms, so that's not really relevant anymore. But someone who is working entirely on their own, if they've got a brilliant idea and they want to talk to us about it, I think the best way for them to proceed is to find it can be a tiny indie, it can be anyone, anywhere, and come through. We need a banner really, so that we know if we progress an idea, where the idea is coming from and where it will sit, and the scale of the indie. But I think the good news for everyone's, hopefully, who's joined this session is that you can be a tiny indie, you can be a regional indie, you can be anywhere in the country. And I think as we go through and we talk about upcoming shows and successful shows, we walk that talk, and you will see that that is the case.
Okay. And Helen, what's the best way to pitch, would you say?
Morning, everybody. The best thing to do is firstly look at our website and see what the briefs are, so that you know that you're pitching, you know what channel you're pitching to, and you know what we're looking for currently on that channel. And then we have a submissions email. You can start there. But if you know us, just email us. If we know lots of people in the industry, just get in touch, send a top line, or book a session. So I'm always really happy to either look at a top line and say yes, no, maybe, or I'm really happy just for people to come in. I say come in, obviously not literally, but at the minute, but sit and we'll talk about what we're looking for, and we'll look at what your strengths are, and we'll say, okay, you really should be pitching a yesterday idea. You really should be developing W ideas. So it's about relationship, really.
There's a question we always ask ourselves in development, Hilary, which is how many ideas should we take to the meeting? Do you have a feeling on kind of how much people should be bringing when they're pitching to you?
I do. I think there isn't a magic number, but I think my heart absolutely sinks when people back in the olden days would come in with a big pile of ideas, and as you would sort of sit there politely saying that's not quite right, or we've got something like it, or not for us, they would literally sort of lick their fingers and go, right, we go to the next one. When people come in with 10 ideas, you just think, are you passionately in love with all 10 of these ideas? Your job as producers is to fall in love with an idea, develop it, worship it, hone it, bring it in, champion it. And that might be one idea, it might be two ideas, it might be three ideas. You can come with one idea to a meeting, and the meeting doesn't have to last an hour. That would be my advice. But pick the ones you are passionate about, because otherwise we might like the one you are least passionate about, and then you'll end up having to make it. And that's, I know in the past I've been in places where that's happened, and that never ends well.
Out of interest, is it often that people bring in one? It's a very brave strategy, isn't it?
Yes, I think probably people we work with regularly will probably feel more confident about just picking up the phone or emailing or walking in and saying, I've got an idea I want to share with you, because that relationship is in place. And I think so much of what we'll talk about this morning is about relationships. And that doesn't mean to say we have our relationships and you can't be our friends. That means you've got to work hard at building a relationship with us, someone in our team, someone in our universe, in order for us to really get the measure of you. We need to know you. It's dating. We need to know you as much as you need to know us. And the banner of the channels, you know what Channel 4 is because you watch it, but you've got to know the personalities. At UKTV, you've got to know us, what our predilections are, how we like to work. And that's what obviously we're trying to step through today to help you guys. But relationships are everything, I would say.
And it'd be great to talk a bit about how the internal pitching process works at UKTV, and who's involved in the discussions and who signs off on new shows. Helen, can you talk to us about that?
Yes, I can. Although Hilary was going to talk about that, so now you've totally thrown me.
Hilary, either of you, listen. You guys.
But can I talk about? Actually, we were going to talk about. I think people ask a lot. Does something need to be massively developed before it comes in? Do you need everything? And there are gradations of that. But what I wanted to say about the pitching process is that if you've got a great top line or you've got a great talent connection, don't think you have to massively develop the idea, because especially if you've not worked with us before, if you say, I've got an idea with insert name here, and you email me, I'll go, okay, that's interesting because we're looking for something like that on W. Then we can develop that idea together. We're all producers. It's quite unusual. Well, because we're small, especially in the Factual team. We're all producers, really experienced producers. So, and have worked in development. We pitched our own ideas to channels in the past. So, and in fact, that's how I ended up working at UKTV, because I made a show for Hilary, and that's how I ended up working with the UKTV. So, what we really like to develop ideas, and we know the channels best. So don't massively develop something and I go, oh my God, that just looks like an ITV show to me. Feel free to come in with a line or an idea for talent, or come in with a fully formed treatment. That's fine too, but you need to be kind of confident that works if you're starting out, it's probably best to sort of go with a para or or an idea or an area or a genre.
Do you like it when producers come in with tapes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want us to talk about the internal pitching process? Is that helpful?
If you wouldn't mind, I think that would be helpful. Yeah.
That's fine. Let's go do that.
I'll pick up on that. Yeah. So we routinely meet with the channels. All the channels have a channel director. There's quite a lot of them. So we commission on, Dave, Gold and W and yesterday. And everything gets discussed as a team, everything that we like and we think has some merit or we're interested to sense check with the channels, we share and we discuss as a team. So if you're pitching to one of us, and we've got Kirsty Hansen in the team, and we've just announced that Emil Navagamua is joining our team. So there's 4 commissioners in the factual entertainment space. I always say pick a favourite and just pitch to that person. Your idea will be shared with all of us. If we like those ideas, we develop them a bit further, and then we take them to the next stage. And the next stage is putting the ideas in front of Richard Watcham, who is the Director of Commissioning, and Steve North, who oversees all of the factual and factual entertainment channels. It's always a collaborative process. It's a conversation. It's not a kind of interview grilling technique. We work quite collaboratively. And then if we're interested in that idea and we want to develop it, commission it, whatever, we then come back, we go through all the due diligence, and then there is a finance committee. We are a commercial broadcaster. We are always looking at the return on investment on a show. How's it going to work for us? How's it going to play commercially? And between all of those people, we get to the point where we are ready to green light. It's not an extremely quick process. It can be in exceptional circumstances. We do our due diligence and then we get going.
I'm very excited because we're actually going to show a taste tape.
Yes,
I was going to say, tape is obviously really helpful.
All of us. This is fun to work out. So now I'm going to ask Helen, were you going to say something before I started talking about a taste tape?
No, I was just going to say, because you brought up tape. I was talking about how to pitch, and you brought up tape, and I was just going to say, tape is always helpful. We're producers. If we see something, then that's if we see something that feels like a program, that gets you further. But you don't have to bring a tape.
So seamlessly taking us to this taste tape. So I'm very excited. So no one's seen this taste tape outside of Boom, who made it, and obviously UKTV. I think it's great to show tasters to see how ideas develop from the beginning. So brilliantly, we have this taster of Big Zoo that obviously led to the series Big Zoo's Big Eats on Dave. So let's have a look at the sizzle. But I should just say, if anyone's of a sensitive nature, it's a little bit sweary, but enjoy this. Oh, it's a good taster. It's such a good tape. I'm a fan of this series anyway, so I could talk about this for ages. But he's got such good energy, and there are no chefs like that on TV. Having read some stuff about Big Zoo, he worked in Nando's for like 6 months, and he's self-taught. I mean, he's incredible. So I don't need to be convinced, but just tell me what appealed when you saw it, and what did you think Big Zoo could offer Dave?
Well, so the first thing to say is that Natalie Rose brought this tape in. She no longer works in our commissioning team, but was a key member of my team. And she said, I've got this tape and I think he's really great and I don't know what you're going to think of it. And she shared it with me. And we all just fell in love with him. We were looking for how to do food differently on Dave, and we'd commissioned other things. Eddie Eats America. We are in the food space quite a lot on Dave. And, I think, there's something joyful and unique and different about what he was doing in the food space. None of us had ever seen anything like that before. We'd never seen him do that kind of stuff. He was quite well known on YouTube, etc., and on his socials, but for terrestrial, he was really unknown. And I think it was just the fact that he had such a strong point of difference and also an infectious enthusiasm. And Natalie came and brought him into the meetings, and she really championed him. And as a result of that, we put them into paid development. They then did paid development taster, which is much more similar to the actual show, because obviously at that point we were talking about what would the actual show be. The interesting thing about that sizzle, watching it again, is it's a combination of found footage that obviously they got off the internet and also stuff specially shot. So that's a kind of that's sort of really the best way of doing something like that. You've got all the stuff that exists in real life, and then you're as a producer, you're imprinting your vision or the beginnings of your vision. So one of the things, the riff at the end, the rap, is something that we've incorporated in all the series, because that just felt so joyful and unique, and that's something that we've gone on to do. I think, are we going to look at a clip of the actual series in a bit?
Yeah, we are. I just wanted to ask, so it's interesting, obviously there were already food shows on Dave. Can you remember if had you briefed out about food, or Boom just came and said, we've got this guy, you have to watch him?
We absolutely had. We were looking for shoulder peak food shows for quite a long time, and we said, bring us someone young and energetic, and maybe their DNA comes from YouTube, the internet, etc. And people brought us lots of ideas, and lots of them were good, but none of them just felt quite irresistible. They all felt like slightly smaller versions of shows in that space, and there are so many brilliant food shows out there across all TV that the bar was really high. And it wasn't really until we started Zoom, we might have even stopped looking at that point, which does happen. And actually, when we commissioned Zoo, we thought about it for a late night slot, more of an entertainment show rather than an early shoulder peak show, more of a food show. We knew we never wanted chop and chat, but actually he does do quite a lot of cooking in the show. And they came up with the irresistible idea, which they developed with Natalie, and that's how we got to the show itself. We didn't meet very much resistance. I mean, it was a risk. Obviously, he's completely unknown talent, and that is, that's a risk for us. We can't, talent is a kite kite mark, as I always say, for us on the network. And he wasn't going to bring very many viewers along with him because he wasn't very well known. But we gave it a punt, and he is now, that show is multi-award nominated. It was nominated everywhere. And, we're so, so proud of it, and more to come.
So for those who haven't watched Big Zoos, Big Eats, can you just tell us in a nutshell what the series is about?
So, well, it's him as you've seen him in the clip, and the series is he cooks for famous people. He cooks their riders. He meets them. He finds out what their food stories are, what their preferences are, and then he creates a three-course meal for celebrities, comedians, particularly in the first series. In this series, we broadened it out, and it's the journey along the way of him sort of getting to know them. And actually, all of the celebrities that have met him have just completely fallen in love with him, as we did, because he is so irresistible. So he has deep charm, and that's another part of the show's huge appeal.
And sometimes they don't always love their food, I should say. So we're going to have a look at this clip of his food. So we're going to look at this clip from the finished show from the latest second series with special guest Maya Jama. They're tucking into a dessert. Oh, tequila dessert. I mean, what else does she want? And I also love that I don't think I've ever seen a food show where not everyone loves the food all the time. Like, obviously she liked it, but she didn't love it. I think I never really get to see that very much. Okay, so we talked a bit about how it progressed from the very beginning, and just out of interest, so this new the first series was all comedians. Obviously, Maya is a very high profile celebrity, so we've moved across, so it's not just comedians now for series 2.
No, Boom and Natalie edged the series out, and there's sort of celebrities, sports people, comedians, etc. But yeah, it's and also we've got shorts as well. We've got I think there are 6 times 8-minute shorts, Big Zoos, Rap Clash. So we're broadening out the format. He's doing some food competition in the YouTube on our socials, so that's great too. So take a look at that if you're interested.
Great. Okay, so moving on to a show with 2 very established names. Let's talk about French and Saunders' Funny Women for Gold. This is an exclusive clip for DocFest that no one else has ever seen. But before we talk about it and play it, can you just tell us a bit about what the show is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hybrid show. Let me tell you where we started. So we started with lovely Glenn Middleham from Double Yellow, got in touch and said, did we want to do a celebration of female comedy on Gold? And of course, I immediately said, yeah, that would be great. And I wasn't joking, but I was being a little cheeky. And I said, if you could get French and Saunders to do it, to if they would do it, if they would own it, if they would talk about their female comic heroes, then that's a much easier conversation with the channel. They are the biggest names in the national treasures. So he went, okay, I'll just go and have a conversation. So he did, and they said yes with caveat. So we started that conversation, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy process because they wanted to do it their way, and we had certain requirements that we needed. But we just worked together really collaboratively, and I think that's the thing to say about us. And it's because I always say we're a bit like a boutique hotel. We're small. We have massive ambitions for everything to be as extraordinary as it possibly can be, but because we're small, we will work with you, and so rather than going, nope, that's it, that's the editorial, the editorial really changed for that show across the process. What's exciting about it is it's sort of semi-scripted, so it's a bit of a hybrid. So it's factual, and it came out of our department. Hilary and I, worked on it, but it's scripted because it's French and Saunders doing it. So it's French and Saunders as themselves in the white set. You'll see in the clip in a minute. They've not done anything like that together for years. I mean, the last thing they did together was the movie. they're playing French and Saunders. It's a bit of a weird one. They're playing French and Saunders, and then they drop back into Dawn and Jennifer. So, but it is absolutely their story, and that's what I love about it. And the other thing that we value so much on all our channels is authenticity. You see it with Zoo. You know, he's not far from his original. You know, from where he comes from, and I wanted them to be authentically. I wanted them to love those clips. I didn't want them just to talk about clips because they're famous, funny women in the clips. I wanted them to love them, and I really think we've done that.
Oh, I love that. I'm trying to imagine a scenario where someone says, "I've got French and Saunders," and the commissioner says, "Nah." They're brilliant in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what's great about that show is, apart from the fact that it's Dawn and Jennifer, obviously, I love the fact that it's a little bit feminist as well. I'm sneaking it in quietly, but what I love is the archive. The archive is extraordinary. I mean, we go from Lucille Ball just doing a really funny physical comedy thing right through to Hannah Gadsby, and Hannah Gadsby makes me cry every time I see the clip. It's from her Netflix show. So it's really, we're super proud, and that's about a relationship. You know, we're going to bang on about this all session. I had worked with Glenn and Mark on something called Morecambe and Wise in America, and they came back to me first with French and Saunders. They could have gone anywhere with funny women. Any channel would have taken funny women, obviously, especially with Dawn and Jennifer attached. But they came to us because they like working with us. And you know, if hopefully, I mean, obviously not everybody loves everybody, but you know, we're good to work with. And so bring us your best stuff. That's my message.
So obviously that's for gold. So that's the bar is very high with French and Saunders. So do you want more names of that caliber? And you know, if an indie came to you and said, we've got, you know, other names of that in that kind of on that level, is that a sure thing commission, do you think?
There's no such thing as a sure thing commission, is there, Hilary?
No, there isn't. Look, you know, they are slightly in their own category, aren't they? I mean, the thing about, I think, Helen, you were going to talk a little bit briefly about gold and what we look for on gold. Do you want to kick off on that?
Yes. So gold, obviously, the thing about gold is that it's everything we do is about heroing that extraordinary archive that we have. It's television gold. It's a slightly older demographic. We aim at it at slightly older demographic. You know, if you look at what we have on the channel, the archive that we're playing, you know, the Last of the Summer Wines, the Only Fools and Horses, etc. You know, it is aimed at a slightly older audience. It's pay that makes a difference. It's behind the paywall, and so therefore it needs to be premium. You know, and obviously French and Saunders is la creme de la creme. But if I go back to my boutique hotel analogy, they're the bridal suite. But Ricky and Ralph, which is Ricky and Ralph's Great Northern Adventure trip, which was a really successful show. It was such a clever pitch that they took Ricky Tomlinson and Ralph Little, who are play father and son on one of our most well-loved shows, The Royal Family, and they put them in real life, and they put them in a camper van, and they went around the north and just had fun together. And they had a relationship on screen, and then they had a relationship in real life, and it was funny and sweet and touching, multi-generational. That really helps for us. That, you know, being able to talk to both ends of our audience. You know, younger people will sit and watch gold. Young people watch Only Fools and Horses. I mean, it's extraordinary how many young people watch that. So if you can bridge that generation gap, then obviously the more viewers we can get to the channel, the better. So it's not just about who's the most famous person you can think of. Let's see if we can get a gold show away. It's how can we cleverly hero that archive, look at that archive in a different way.
So what would be great is if so we're going to go through the different UK TV channels, the Factual channels, and talk about what the kind of audience profiles are for each. That was great to kick off with Gold. Should we move on to Dave?
Yeah. I mean, Dave. So Dave is not behind a paywall. And it's one of the most well-known brands outside of the big terrestrial brands in TV. So we're starting from a very good place. Dave's job is to attract a young upmarket audience. That is what we are tasked to do when we commission shows. So every time we commission a show, we are really thinking, is this going to appeal to a young 16, 24, 34 demo? And obviously that was part of the attraction with Zoo. And I think it's our highest, the most number of youngs tune in for that show. So that's obviously a massive win for us. A lot of what we commission on Dave is comedy entertainment. That is where we put most of our money and most of our effort, and that's where all of our big premium titles go. But we do also commission Factual and Factual entertainment and travelogue on Dave. So there is some opportunity on Dave for that. So things, if I just quickly list some things that we've commissioned recently in the Factual space. So Blue Light, you mentioned it in your intro. We've got a show coming that's running, just finishing at the moment, Fast Justice, early evening. It's premiering on a Sunday. ITM Productions make that show for us. It's a really neat little format. It's a slightly new way of policing, and they've really made a sort of really nice Blue Light show, which has quite a lot of drama sensibility to it. That's done really well. Shout out to ITM Production, but also to everyone sitting, hopefully watching this session. They've been pitching to me for several years without success. This was the perfect project, and I was delighted to be able to put them into production because, I really wanted to reward all their effort and hardworking, constantly coming back to me with fresh and new ideas. And then we managed to get this one off the ground. We've got obviously Big Zoo. We've got Helen's got a series coming up, Cops on the Rock, which is a sort of more obstock style factual piece based in Gibraltar, looking at the police there. Our big premium Factual Expedition with Steve Backshall, that does brilliantly for us. That's in its second series, that sells around the world. So that's a hugely important piece of TV for us, massive piece of talent. We've got a travelogue with 3 young comedians. That's going to be going out soon. That's going to hopefully do a similar job to Zoo in terms of bringing new, fresh, diverse talent to the channel. We're really, really focused on young, diverse talent and trying to give them opportunity and give them space to do their first work. That might be in strictly comedy entertainment, but it also might be in the factual entertainment space.
It's actually one of the few channels that really grows talent, isn't it, Dave? It's really seen. It's really kind of. It's almost like created a generation or helped a generation of comedians grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's with great pride when I look at all of the comedians that did our first series of Taskmaster. And all, Josh Widdicombe was on that first series. Romesh, he'd barely done anything on TV before that. And so many of them have gone on to have absolutely massive careers. So, yeah, and that's very much part of our strategy on Dave is to, any panel show and any studio hybrid show that we're commissioning, we always try and create a seat for someone fresh and young and different and contemporary. That's a really important part of what we do.
And then Helen, are you talking to us about Yesterday?
I am going to talk about Yesterday because I absolutely love Yesterday. It was a new strategy to commission on Yesterday. It's only been sort of the last 3 years. Really committed and engaged channel director. Not that they're not all brilliant, but he absolutely knows that channel. He knows his audience really, really well. So that audience. So the first thing to say about Yesterday is that currently, apart from Architecture the Railways Built, which is a bit of a unicorn, we only commission precinct-based observational documentaries. So we need a gang of people like Bangers and Cash, or our new show Secrets of the Transport Museum, which finished transmitting last week. We need a space where passionate experts, often amateur, not in the case of Bangers, obviously that's a business, but certainly Secrets of the Transport Museum, they're all volunteers, most of them, where they do their really, really good work, because our audience is absolutely thirsty for knowledge. They literally want to be able to watch the show on yesterday, go to the pub when they were allowed to, as soon as they were allowed to, and go, you'll never believe it, but the Harrier jump jet, blah, 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 blah. So we just need to feed them knowledge, facts, in a really entertaining way. They totally see through any artifice. They cannot bear anything that's been the hand of the producer. And we talk to our audience a lot, and they tell us, and sometimes it's a bit bruising. You think, oh, I was only doing an interview, mate, don't worry. But that's how engaged they are, and they are totally brilliant, and I absolutely love them. So some of the shows, obviously, I'll talk about architecture slightly different. We're going to talk more about that in a minute, actually. In fact, I'll let Hills talk about that because that's her show. So Bangers and Cash, long running, we're on series 6 now, Air TV, brilliant observational doc based in a Yorkshire car doer-upper auction house. Great, it's got perfect process, beginning, middle and end. They're built for TV, those shows. Secrets of Transport Museum, based it slightly different, but still process. I mean, there's no. Lots of people think, oh, I'll get access to the Natural History Museum. That's not going to work for us. People have to be doing things. People have to be tinkering things. You have to be able to smell the Swarfiga, otherwise it doesn't work for us. If you don't know what Swarfiga is, I'll tell you later. Warbird Workshop, which is a beautiful show about getting planes from the First and Second World War back up in the air. And then coming up, we've got Hornby, a Model World, which is based at Hornby HQ, which is the home of Hornby and Scalextrics and Airfix, which is beautiful. It's about miniatures and it's great fun. And then we've also got Secrets of the London Underground, which is a spin-off from Architecture. So I'm going to hand that back over to Hilary now. She's going to talk to you more about that show.
Yes, I think just before I do, to add, yesterday the budgets are tight. We are looking for producers who can really think creatively about budget. If you watch our output, I think you'll be impressed by the standard and the ambition and the creative ambition for all of them. As a result, we tend to commission in runs of 10. And then the prize is when shows are successful, so you've got the economies of scale. And then if a show is successful, sometimes we'll commission 2 more series in order to, again, make the money work. So that's something important to think about. And we don't pilot on yesterday. So, we trust you. We'll probably, if we like an idea, we'll probably put you into paid development. We'll get you to really edge out the idea, both filmically and in terms of a treatment. And our big questions will be, will this last for 10 episodes? Is this a 3-episode wonder? And more importantly, if it's successful, can it come back again and again and again and again? So you need to think about those things when you're trying to develop a yesterday idea. Helen talked about the architecture the railways built, which is presented by the effervescent and unbelievably enthusiastic Tim Dunn. It spawned a baby unicorn, and it's the spin-off is Secrets of the London Underground, where we took Tim and a contributor who works for the London Underground and had appeared in one story in the previous series on a London Underground story, unsurprisingly, and we know there's a huge enthusiasm and interest in all things to do with the London Underground. It's, world famous, iconic institution in the UK. And together they are presenting a series that is just underground stories. And I think, have we got a clip of that? I hope.
He is Britain's most enthusiastic man, isn't he, Tim Dunn? He completely makes that show, doesn't he?
He is the big zoo of yesterday. I mean, honestly, he blew us away. I mean, it's a very similar story. He was a guy, passionate expert, but very weren't going to do, which was commission, as Helen said, an expert-led show. That show is made by Brown Bob. A big shout out to them. They make a lot of our content. Again, another small indie, well, growing, but small indie. And they make a lot of our shows on W and on Yesterday. And they're a real testament to how a good working relationship can lead to really strong creative conversations and can move in all.
Exactly what you were saying, Helen, isn't it? I suppose yesterday shows have fact rates, don't they? And they just come at you, and you could just imagine, yeah, as you said, sort of reciting them to your friends once you do get to that pub. Can we talk about W and W's audience and what makes a strong factual show for that channel?
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on just off the back of, just because I think it's probably useful, off the back of what Hilary was saying about Brown Bob and yesterday and W inside the ambulance. They also make for us, amongst other spin-offs. What happened, and it's relevant to what I'm just about to talk about, what happens when you when you go into production with something, and I know that's the hardest moment, but that's what we're trying to help you with. But when you go into production with something, we work so collaboratively. So I always have routines with people depending on what we're doing. It might be weekly, it might be fortnightly. You get inside the head. It's what Hilary was talking about earlier, about the predilections of, what you'll get to know if you work with me, any of us, you'll get to know what we like and what works. And also you'll start to, the channel requirements will start to seep into you. And that's what's happened with Brown Bob. So I can't stress enough that even if you keep getting no's and it's not work, you think, oh God, I'm so fed up with that woman. She just keeps saying no to me. Just please keep coming back, because honestly, the more you stick to our sides, the more likely you're gonna crack it. And that's what's happened, with lots of our people. So W's are, again, it's a pay channel. It's our premium general entertainment channel. It is mainly female skewed. We always talk about it as a female skewed channel, but we need to have a broad audience. And when you think about what we commission, and it's much broader. We need co-viewing. We need people to be sitting down with their partners, maybe their children, but so it's not kittens. I always say that, it's so awful. I'm so sorry, Sheffield. I'm not going to say that. I've stopped myself. I was going to say kittens and makeup. I'm not going to say that. It's unbelievably, it's awful. But don't bring us a makeover show. We can't, we're not the BBC. We can't take sewing bee. We have to have broader, because we're digital, so we have to have something that really kind of sells it. So we, amongst our shows, are Emma Willis delivering babies, and that's a really interesting story of the commission, because we were working with Firecracker Films to make that, and lots of our content, because they're totally brilliant, and also they established a relationship really early on. So the first thing I commissioned from them was Dr. Christian Will See You Now, which did really, really well. We had 3 series plus a special, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was so well made. He was a big name. It felt like a moment for us to be launching something with Christian, because he wasn't working with Channel 4 anymore. Through that, they got to know us really, really well. And when we started talking about Emma Willis, did Emma want to come and make her passion project with us, which is something that we try and do for talent. Emma's agent, Claire, asked us to pitch it out to a few producers, which we did. And Firecracker just got it straight away. And that's because they know us so well. They knew me, they knew Hilary, they knew the process. So, and that is, I always say it, and I can't help it, I don't care. It's multi-award winning. It's also the most successful show on the channel. Of those kind of primetime shows. We also have Inside the Ambulance. We were talking about Brown Bulb just now. That is the gift that keeps on giving. That's a much loved show. Again, it's a broad show. You can sit and watch that with anyone and it'll sort of work for them. But it has unique W qualities. It's emotional, it's warm, it's never sneery, it's funny, it's got kick-ass characters. That's the thing about a W show. We can't just commission any sort of well-known female, and also FYI, we'd love some men on the channel, please. It's not that, we're not Sky Living of 10 years ago. everything has to have a USP. It's hard. W's hard, but honestly, it's so rewarding if you get it right, because we love it and we look after it. So talking about talent, obviously one of our very successful shows is Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over. That's Hilary's show, so I'm going to hand back to her and she's going to talk about
that. Yes. Do you think, Mel, we've got time to show a quick clip, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should. It's always nice to see Stacey Dooley, isn't it? So this is Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over.
Yeah.
Wow, imagine Stacey Dooley staying in your house. That is,
that's
and also, if you have 1 million kids as well, where do you put Stacey Dooley? I want to know more about the logistics of that. Can you tell us a bit about? I should have said before the clip. Sorry, just tell us in a nutshell what that show is. It's obviously very immersive, factual for Stacey.
That show does what it says on the tin. That is Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over. She goes and sleeps over with an interesting, diverse, unusual British family, mostly families, who are going to tell us something really interesting about people who live not just at the edges, but live different lifestyles or feel very passionate about their lifestyles. We've obviously, that's an Orthodox Jewish family. The access is incredibly hard to get that kind of access. And Firecracker did brilliantly. And that's basically the nutshell of the show. I mean, we knew we wanted to work with Stacey. Natalie and I developed that series with Firecracker and Helen along the way. It was quite a collaborative process. We'd asked lots of companies to think about what Stacey could do. The idea needed for us clear blue water. She was doing a lot of her factual, more current affairs, investigative stuff on other channels, and we knew we wanted her to be more in the entertainment space. Now, of course, she's doing quite a lot of entertainment shows, but at the time she hadn't been announced strictly. So she really was just a factual face. We knew we would have not very much time with her, so we thought quite practically about the kind of show. I was obsessed with Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends. I'd always loved that show, and that was strong in my memory. And that was one of the notes that we gave to Firecracker. And they worked and came back with this idea. And I'm very, very, very proud of this series. I think it's exceptionally good and interesting. I think every single film is saying something really fascinating, important, unusual. I think her tone in it is exceptional. And what I love is when she says to me that actually when she gets stopped, this is the show people talk about her about the most, which is amazing given that this is a show that sits behind a paywall and she does glow up on all sorts of other big pieces. So that's actually that brings me on.
Sorry. No, I'm just going to say I'm just aware of time because I do want to get to some questions, but I just would want to just ask you, can you tell us about what's coming next and who else you'd like to work with on W?
Well, to answer the second question first, we'd like to work with anyone in terms of producers, but in terms of talent, what's coming, we're just announcing today, and I'm really, really proud of this commission, and it's quite an unusual one for us. So we've announced a show this morning that will premiere during Baby Loss Awareness Week, which is in the autumn, and it's called Myleene Klass, Miscarriage and Me. It's going to be, I think, a very important film. Myleene very sadly suffered 4 miscarriages before she got pregnant with her now young son, having had 2 daughters, a decade well before her son. And she found it, unsurprisingly, an absolutely devastating and heartbreaking experience. And she talked about it on Instagram, and she shared some stuff around it. And a very small production team, Hall of Mirrors, based in Cardiff, again, not a big name brand, went and shot a taster with Myleene, where she read from a diary that she kept at the time, and she had never really such a strong and sort of heartbreaking taster that we were all absolutely blown away by. We'd worked with her before, Helen and I, on another series, so we knew her, but we didn't know her in this space. And although we don't ever really normally commission one-offs, unless they're things like the French and Saunders idea, but for our factual shows, we tend to order runs of 6 or 8 or 10. and we don't normally always mark sort of landmark dates in the calendar in the way that a public service broadcaster will. We decided that because she was working with some miscarriage baby loss charities and was working alongside a campaign and stuff, we thought that this was such an important message for our channel that we decided to commission that show. They're well into production on that, and I think it's going to be a really powerful film where I think we'll see Mylene in a way that we haven't seen her before.
That sounds like a really powerful film, an important film for, a female skewing channel that people will talk about, right?
Precisely. Yeah.
So I just want to wrap up our other sessions so we can move on to Q&A. So we've obviously watched some great clips, some exclusives, which is brilliant. We've heard about how commissioning works. So if you could summarise, what do you want people to take away from this session? We've talked about quite a lot, but what do you want people to take away?
I think it's the most important thing is establish a relationship with one commissioner on our team, and we're about to grow into a 4-person team again, so there's plenty to go around. Have a relationship, stick at it, and we commission so broadly that we really can. I don't know who's out there because we're in a weird space in my living room, but we can work with anybody. It's just bring us your best ideas.
I've got a question from Haresh Sood. Sorry, Hilary. I just wanted to cut you off. Go on.
Can I just quickly add to that everything that she said, as ever, but also, think about diversity, think about inclusivity, think about those fresh voices, those diverse faces. We are up for, that's the challenge for the whole industry, and we, like all other broadcasters, are really trying to have a really proper commitment to ensure that we get the broadest possible faces and voices across the channels.
Okay, great, thank you. So Harish's question is, if you're not a producer but you've got a good idea and can't find a production house to take the idea forward with you, can people come to you independently with ideas?
You can. I don't recommend it. I think if you've got a good idea, a production company will be falling over themselves to get into bed with you. So that's probably a bit of a test of how good your idea is. I think if you shop your idea out to 2 or 3 or 4 production companies and they all go, nah, mate, I can't see it, then they're probably telling, these are going to be experienced developers who spend a lot of time in front of commissioners, so they do know what channels want.
Josh B wants to know if you can give an outline of programme budgets.
We don't we don't talk about budgets. We don't commission to slot or budget. Yesterday is slightly different in that we do have a bit of a tariff, and if you've got a yesterday idea, I'm happy to talk about it. We pay market rates. You'll see from the shows we have on our channels, we pay as other broadcasters do. We pay the right money for the right show.
Someone sent me a soft pitch. Let's go for it. Let's have a soft pitch. Would Yesterday or Dave ever consider a series based on a Sunday League football team if it had the right angle and included the historical locations of the teams, diverse inclusion, the real lives of the players and coaches?
Yesterday would not have process. Yes, that's not right for yesterday's. Where's the process? What are you making? There's no make in it. There's no detail. There's no oily rags.
Yeah, and I think for Dave, people sometimes mistakenly think, oh, blokes, football, kick a ball around. I mean, it's got to be a bit broader than that. It's got to be, I think Dave is currently at 45% women, which doesn't mean to say that women wouldn't be interested in football, but it's not, how's it going to pop out of the EPG? How are you going to pull eyeballs down to the channel, which is what I always say. Is it sticky enough? Does that have enough of a point of difference? Is it a proper idea, or is it just a bit of a look at a thing rather than a sort of an idea with a point of difference? Sorry.
That was very cheeky of you, Martin. I admire that. And then lastly, someone wants a reminder of who people can pitch to in the Factual commissioning team.
Good. Very, very good question. Thank you. You can pitch to, so as Helen said, there will now be 4 of us again, which is great news. So you can pitch to Helen, you can pitch to me, you can pitch to Kirsty Hansen, who is another member of our team. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got our new commissioner starting towards the end of June, Emil, and you can pitch to any of the 4 of us. We have the fantastic Jen Proctor. She oversees all of the submissions and our slate. And if you email the submissions box, all of this is on the website, all this information. Her eyes will be across that submissions box. She was the person who saw the Hall of Mirrors email that came through submissions because they didn't know us. And she said, I've seen this thing. I think it's great. Take a look. So, you've got actually 5 pairs of eyes who I think, I feel very confident that they are all, have got expert editorial judgment and will really consider ideas properly as and when we see them.
And that, everybody, is our session. It's 12:01. Damn, 1 minute out. My first chairing, 1 minute out. But we got there. And thank you so much to everybody for joining us. Hilary and Helen, or Helen as I will now call you going forward. Thank you so much for joining us on the panel. And thanks also to Laurie, who produced. I hope everyone found it helpful. As a producer, I certainly did. So thank you so much for joining us and have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks. Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, Mel. Bye-bye.